Indiana. New era, new energy. Already making plans for next season. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Indiana?
Instant panic hit the Indiana Fever, and they totally deserved it. They accidentally leaked their list of protected players for next season. Talk about a huge mistake. To make things worse, they posted it online by accident. This is just another example of how this franchise constantly messes up. First, they botched things with Caitlin Clark, overshadowing her talent with their own mistakes. Now, they're about to pay the price for ignoring real talent.
There's not even one scenario ever out there in all the multiverses where Caitlin Clark wouldn't be on the.
Let's be honest, your picks look like favoritism, or worse, you're focusing on players who probably brought in some extra money for you. Clearly, scouting talent isn't your strength. The players you've chosen might have some potential, but ignoring rising stars and solid players is just neglect. If this is your strategy, Indiana, you're in for a season full of regret. Indiana Fever, what were you thinking? November 24th, 2024 should be a reminder of how not to run a franchise. Who needs leaks when your social media team is out here posting your protected player list for the WNBA expansion draft?
Expansion draft is happening on December the 6th. It's going to be live on ESPN. But before that happens, here's what you need to know.
The Fever accidentally posted a graphic showing their protected player list, basically handing a cheat sheet to every rival in the league, just one day before the protection deadline. Seriously, was it that hard to hold off for 24 more hours? By the time they tried to delete it, fans had already taken screenshots, and we all know screenshots last forever. Indiana, you just turned a key moment for your franchise into a disaster that'll be remembered.
We have a new team, the Golden State Valkyries, that's going to begin and play in 2025. But before that happens, we need to have an expansion draft because they need some players on their roster.
Here's the situation. The Golden State Valkyries, the new WNBA team debuting in 2025, are getting ready for their expansion draft. The stakes are high for every team. Each franchise can protect 6 players from being picked, while the rest are left open. It's a careful strategy game, unless you're the Indiana Fever, in which case, you just flip the board and let everyone see your cards.
The future is so bright, and our ultimate goal is to hang another banner in the field house. And our ultimate goal is to come back in here after we win that championship and celebrate again like we did in 20.
But wait, it gets worse. This draft isn't just any draft, it's shaping the future of the league. The Fever, coming off their first playoff appearance in years, should be riding a wave of good vibes. Instead, they're drowning in public embarrassment. This isn't a small mistake. It's the kind of blunder people will talk about for years, like when you accidentally hit reply all on a work email, but 1,000 times worse.
Women's sports, it's a big opportunity to be a part of this rising tide that we're all experiencing. Everybody in this company's all in. Everybody in this city's all.
Now, let's talk about the list itself because, of course, it's just as messy as the situation that created it. Caitlin Clark? She's the face of the franchise, a rookie sensation who fills arenas and makes highlight reels. Aaliyah Boston? No-brainer. She's a double-double machine and the heart of the team. Kelsey Mitchell? With her scoring, she's practically untouchable. Lexi Hull? Okay, she's scrappy, improving, and adds depth.
There's not even one scenario ever out there in all the multiverses where Caitlin Clark wouldn't be on the list. Aaliyah Boston, same thing goes for her. Kelsey Mitchell's going to be a free agent, but we know the Fever really want to bring her back. They've been celebrating her accomplishments in China. They just posted an hour of her highlights online. They can core her if they have her rights and keep her under contract. So it makes sense that they keep that big 3.
But then there are the confusing choices. Nalissa Smith? Sure, she has talent, but inconsistency seems to be her thing. This is the same player who spent half the season getting attention for her TikTok drama instead of her skills on the court. Protecting her feels like flipping a coin and hoping for heads. High risk, low reliability.
Court stuff. She's not the best decision maker with the basketball. Motor comes into question at times. Not really a shooter. However, there was also the other stuff. You know, she would seem to have an issue with Christy Sides. Doesn't seem to stay away from social media at times. And then the thing with Dejanay Carrington and the Sun and the.
And then there's Tommy Fogg Bentley. Sure, she's a veteran, but injuries have made her more of a liability than a help. Choosing her over younger, fresher talent like Grace Berger just doesn't make sense. Berger may not be playing much right now, but she's a solid backup for Clark. Meanwhile, Bentley's best days are behind her.
Hemifag Bentley is a winning attitude kind of player, plays hard on defense, really ran the floor well on the season, did a nice job converting Caitlin Clark's passes early in the year. Didn't do as well later in the year with that. Blew a lot of layups and bunnies, but I think part of that was because she had a hand in.
Let's talk about who didn't make the list. Damaris Dantes was left exposed. She's a versatile forward who can stretch the floor and add depth, but apparently, Indiana thinks they're so stacked they can afford to let her go. This decision looks like short-term thinking, and the fan backlash has been just as predictable as it is justified. And then there's Grace Berger. How does someone with her potential not make the cut? She's young, underused, and exactly the kind of backup Caitlin Clark needs. Throwing her into the expansion draft is the kind of move that makes you wonder if anyone in the front office even cares about their job.
Just never know. You just never, ever know when it comes to the WNBA. Like, nothing will surprise me. But this is a competent franchise. They're going to keep the players that have the most value, whether it be on the court or in the...
What's even worse is how this whole mess matches perfectly with ESPN's predictions. Now, everyone's wondering if this wasn't just a leak, but also a sign of how uninspired their strategy is. Seriously, Indiana, if your big moves are so obvious that a sports network can predict them, maybe it's time to change things up. Instead, you've backed yourself into a corner where every questionable decision, like protecting Smith and Bentley over Berger and Dantes, makes it look like you have no clue what you're doing. The fallout? A franchise that finally had some positive momentum is now a joke. Fans are doubting your competence, analysts are tearing apart your priorities, and rival teams are probably celebrating your self-sabotage. The expansion draft is on December 6th, and no matter what happens, the Fever have already lost a key battle. Their credibility now. Let's talk about the theory floating around. Some fans think this leak was intentional, a sneaky way to see how the public reacts. If that's true, it's both reckless and kind of genius, in a let's burn everything down sort of way. Using your fan base as a focus group for your mistakes? Bold move, Indiana. But if this was an actual accident, which seems more likely given their track record, it's just another reason to question the competence of everyone involved. Leaks like this aren't just embarrassing, they're disastrous when you're trying to rebuild your credibility.
Stephanie White sees the talent that Melissa has, and she clearly has talent, and thinks, I can get the most out of Melissa. Or maybe the Fever think, hey, we're not going to lose her for nothing. Let's protect her because she does have trade value.
Here's the bigger problem. These decisions could push away an already fragile fan base. Let's break it down. Choosing Melissa Smith and Tammy Bentley over Grace Berger and Damaris Dantes only makes sense if it pays off big. If it doesn't, you're left with a team that looks more like a mismatched puzzle than a championship contender. If Smith doesn't perform or Bentley's injuries keep her sidelined, this team will have what could have been written all over it. Meanwhile, if Berger and Dantes get picked up by the Golden State Valkyries, they could thrive and make Indiana look even worse. It's like they're playing chess, but missing half the pieces, while the Valkyries just sit there laughing at every move.
The reason this has become a thing is because the players in front of her, well, there were 6 of them. And the WNBA draft, the expansion draft coming up, you can protect 6 players from the Golden State Valkyries. Each team, each franchise can. So fans try to put 2 and 2 together, seeing the 6 players that Stephanie White was talking to and thinking those must be the 6 players.
The reason this became such a big deal is because there are 6 players that each team can protect for the upcoming WNBA expansion draft, where the Golden State Valkyries get to choose players. Fans started connecting the dots, seeing the 6 players that Stephanie White was talking to, and figured those must be the ones protected. Speaking of the Valkyries, this leaked list is a goldmine for them. With a clear view of Indiana's priorities, they can now mess with the Fever's plans however they want. Snag unprotected players, make preemptive trade offers, you name it. Indiana basically handed them a cheat sheet for their strategy. Honestly, The Valkyries should send Indiana a thank you card for making their job so much easier. This mess isn't just bad for Indiana, it's a prime example of how not to handle high-stakes situations. Expansion drafts don't happen often, and when they do, they change the league. Every decision matters, and mistakes can shake up rosters and standings. Yet here's Indiana, stumbling in a league that's becoming more competitive every day.
The WNBA now getting some of the vibes that the NBA has gotten in free agency and off seasons in the past, where fans can't stop speculating about every little.
Then there's Caitlin Clark. She's not just the face of the Fever, she's the face of the entire WNBA. Her rookie season was historic, breaking records and putting Indiana back on the map. Pairing her with Aaliyah Boston should have been the foundation of a rising powerhouse. But instead of building wisely around them, the Fever are making choices that could hold their stars back. Protecting Clark and Boston? That's the bare minimum. They didn't mess up the obvious. But the rest of the roster? It's a shaky mix of unproven talent, injury risks, and missed chances.
A little Fever fun, right? I mean, it's an off-season topic. It's perfect for that. A little bit of Fever fun. We can have that. And shout out to the social team if they're getting in trouble today. No big deal.
Indiana Fever, you had one job. Keep your plans secret and show the league you're a team to be taken seriously. Instead, you've given the Golden State Valkyries a free pass to study your strategy and let the rest of the league laugh at you. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a total collapse. If this is what new energy looks like, your fans are in for a tough season.